Thank you, Jay, for such a stunning installation. When I first met Jay, I guess in the late 1990s, the work was very much this work. And do you want to first, maybe we should go back in time a little before 1990 and the moment at which you decided that what your preferred media or medium would be, which is primarily paper. So do you want to talk about getting to that point, and then we can jump off on this image and talk about the practice?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for Valerie, and who loves art and living with art and support art and artists. Thank you. Well, without you, probably artists doesn't exist, and curators.
It's the chicken and the egg.
Exactly. So yes, we're gonna go back to very beginning of my rolled paper series. This is the work I did at the very beginning of it in 1996 when I was in graduate school, and this one material called adding machine tape. When you buy stuff, you get receipt. So this receipt comes with small, probably 3 inches diameter, and there's plastic in the middle to fit it into the machine. So I had a project that working with either painting. My program in Mount Royal in Maryland Institute College of Art is very flexible. Medium, painting, sculpture, performance, do whatever you want to do. Just doing a good job, not bad job, according to my director said. So that gives me kind of opportunity to search for material instead of painting on the paper. So we went to store that, sorry.
Refresh it.
Something, not like an art supply store. So I went to Home Depot, I went to other places and Staples. So I found, anyways, papers. It's a cash register roll, comes with big, plastic. And I got 4 pieces, and okay, this is perfect circle. So I'm just gonna screw this shape, which is I just dumped it in the water. So when paper absorb moist, which is water, they just deform their own shape. So interesting, so I stamped it, and it wasn't enough. It was very disgusting looking, which was fine. But I want to make something reasonable look like more art. So I flipped that paper. This is great. I don't have to go through other process. Just show these 4 pieces on my hand, and I show my director, this is 4 pieces of circle. He said, interesting. He didn't say anything. He said, interesting. So that's the beginning of this series. And more than, after that, I see like more than studio work possibility. So I took other kind of paper, took it to the, near my place in DC, Ocean City or Virginia Beach, big brown craft roll paper, slid it in the middle, buried under the sand before high tide, and went back to the site after high tide. So there's no guarantee the paper is going to stay there or not. I have no idea. So I went back there, and then the paper sitting there. There's my niece here. She went there with me. It's like the paper slitted it in the middle. It opens like amazing. It's like all layers showing by the cause of cutting in the middle. So, and then I did something by big stack of recycled sketchbooks, 4 screws to hold it and bury it under the earth and take it out to sea. Probably it's going to be the most disgusting smelly work I did, but I took it out and see it, and then all of those pieces came out with bugs eating paper. So I got amazing, beautiful lines of drawings by bug drawing. I call bug drawing. And then, as usual, burn some paper to see what paper reacts. So all of this experimental work, I did it, and I ended up, I can make artwork, not only studio, outside, but I don't have to show it. It's all of my study of what I want to do with this project. So this is tiny spool of paper I re-roll. Probably I use between 200 and 300 piece of adding machine tape, and I didn't have like a mechanical re-roll and unroll at the same time. So I made a lazy Susan. You can get lazy Susan in any Chinese restaurant. Oh, that's gonna work. Student doesn't have money, so hold it and turning the table, and all of my classmates came. That's a hell of a job you're doing. So I made it, and it was flat. So I got pool of water mixed with ink, and whole thing I just dumped it in the water. It was flat, and what I see is paper rise amazingly, beautifully, stunningly, like accident. It's like, what is going on? It was interesting. So anyway, it's a rise by itself, like a cereal bowl shape. The surface you are seeing it's a floor, sitting on the floor, but you can't mess around when paper's wet. So you have to finish backing and put structure behind it to hold that shape, glue it, epoxy, and cover the shape, cover the back, and then make a hanger and flip it over to see the surface. Meanwhile, usually take 2 to 3 weeks. The fan's going on. Paper doesn't want to get wet more than 2 weeks. After that, some other colors start to show. So I don't want that. And then flip it over and start to work on surface with added more black, which is sumi ink I'm using. It's spray, instead of using brush. Spray over and over and over until you get the color you want, very deep, dark, velvety black. So the soaking process is, coloring process takes probably 6 months. So after I did black, this is detail. How do I make this shape? Probably this end right here is very loose, so they have space to move, and right in the middle is very tightly rolled. So it gives you some kind of flexibility to move their own. And after very organic shape to more organized shape, and it's not that far from away. So sometimes I do work with my hand. Everybody work with your hand, and when you just pause your movement, I see my hand. See my hand?
I see it.
Yeah, such a shape. See, it's like a shape. You have to move around and shape like this. Oh, it's interesting. I'm not saying that this is exactly my hand shape, but I do work with my hand. The sketches and drawings, over the years. When you do sketches and drawing, you get half, basic. So.
But what were some of the early inspirations for these shapes?
Early inspiration of shape is more like just go with it. And I don't have specific shape. It's very organic. I don't have plan. Just roll it and unroll it and wrap around it and make a ribbon out of it. So I didn't have specific shape to work with it. Mm-hmm. So after that, I see more like detail, more plan, which is the weather channel I like to watch. The wind channel, the wind direction of states, the arrow goes here and they merged like that, or, like architectural shape, and just go and see out there what's there and all of the organic shape. And this is just single, doubled, tripled the layers, adding of this adding machine tape, and just let it expanded. So this is, also I did it in graduate school.
So is this a full wall? What's the dimensions on this?
This is 48 by 48 for each piece.
Mm-hmm. And so early on, you're looking at both paper, how you can manipulate it with your hand, mm-hmm. but also how entities such as water also shifts and manipulates the paper.
Yes.
So there's always been this preoccupation with sort of man-made versus some more organic processes. One of the things I realized from the first 3 images that we've seen is that you are primarily looking at the presentation of this on the wall. Mm-hmm. So were you trained initially in painting? I mean, or why was this propensity about the wall?
Well, making art doesn't have to categorize. So I did pretty much a lot of things. I even went to graphic design school, art and craft school, and fashion school and other school, contemporary art, of course. And I just want to know everything in general. And one thing I didn't go to architectural school. Architect is one of those things I love to see all of these breezes and buildings, like Renzo Piano's building, Ozzy's building. It's great. I still like, if I have time to learn, I'm going to learn to architect, design, but I don't have time for that.
It's never too late.
Never too late. Yes. So I've been. So it's pretty much working with black, Sumi ink behind it. So why I'm so obsessed with black? Well, the thing is, we used to use lots of paper with brush, which is calligraphy ink. And my father loved to write those things. Even though when I was in Japan, my father is in Korea, he write a letter with tiny brush with calligraphy kind of thing. It's very stunning. It's beautiful. And then I went back to Korea. I started to learn those. It's like, man, this is not easy to do it because the brush itself is very difficult to control. Gets bigger. It's like almost performance. Get the line and thinner. Oh, that's not what I want. So just use ink. Why not? So paper and ink. The ink comes with a zit, like the burned stuff, and when you burn like it's something like wood, and they have some black stuff coming, and they work with this, ash kind of thing made for this ink. And the source of this paper is fiber. It's kind of interesting concept. It goes all the way up there, and they match it. It's like, oh, that's interesting. So that's I work with black, and all of a sudden I just have to see some color. I'm missing, like a color. I used to work with lots of color, but I don't know.
How long did it take you working for that transition from working primarily with Sumi ink to shifting into more?
Actually, it never shipped. I work with both. I don't totally go away with previous material. As you know, it's adding machine tape. So you don't really see it, but it's all mixed with Sumi ink with other calligraphy ink here to the color I want.
Do you want to talk about how the forms the ideas for the forms begin to shift? You had a really lovely story about this particular shape.
This particular shape, I went back to Korea. Korea has changed extremely. You don't see anything else except concrete and Chanel bag. So, so I went back to countryside, and then they still have, small store has egg. They're selling egg, and there's egg sitting like that, and the straw is a package of egg. So that was really amazingly beautiful, object I always seen when I was little. So I was like, okay, let's just get inspired by traditional material. We have it out there in East. Chinese has it, Japanese, East side of Asia has all same concept of selling and carrying those eggs with straw, covered with straw. So this is one of those inspiration of my identity, but the color is not straw color. It's very velvety green, more like olive green with purple. And then after that, it's interesting to work with red. It's all calligraphy ink, comes with color, and red. Never work with red. And went back to Korea same way, and I left Korea when I was almost 19, and I always looking for something different, something different, more like going to West. And left country about 30 years and start to thinking or missing, who the hell am I? So I'm always out there and not looking for what was I playing with or. So I went back to Korea. There is some wedding ceremonial thing, like India was so colorful dresses and things like that. And my mother has like a red skirt with yellow jacket on top. It's like, oh, that's so tacky, but it's so beautiful. It's like it's my identity color. So I was like, maybe I can work with red. So this is red I made, and it's very organic shape and look like. You can see whatever you want to see the shape, but I'm not going to say what it is because it's not. It's not.
Not a that you got us thinking about it.
Exactly. Yeah, these people just make me think the shape. I never think about it, but it's like, really?
Well, you bring up an interesting thing, not so much that, but in terms of feminist thought, this idea of labor, I think, in the work, which is something that it's both inherent, I think, in the work because it takes the physicality, like you say, almost performance, to create it. And once the screen comes down, we have 3 channels here. You can actually see a video of Jay installing this exhibition. So it is a lot of physical labor in the work, even in these more discrete individual works. So I think in terms of women's work and labor, so do you, maybe that's my pure conjecture in it, but I wonder if you also think about these things in terms of not only form and beauty of creating something, but also maybe a different kind of intention, a different kind of thought process that goes into creating them.
Well, shape and process, it's almost same, but sometimes you really get, the shape that really busy and not, it feel like it's too much, and all of a sudden everything switches more like a minimal. It's going back and forth. And is that your question?
No.
Okay.
I was asking more. I was thinking more like a politic. I was thinking more like politics. I mean, maybe I always want to infuse things with politics, but I'm thinking about sort of feminist thought in labor and the use of the hands. Because if you think of painting, which feels more of such a male-dominated space historically,
I don't really think artwork has between male and female kind of concept.
Yeah.
So I really don't think about that. People, it's just like a J.Ko. It's my name. Sounds very male kind of name in Korean way. Nobody knows. It's like it's a female. So my work. I don't know. You see my work as like a female. Kind of feeling, but I don't know. But I don't have anything in...
That was my conjecture.
Yeah.
Okay, I had to ask.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for asking.
No problem. Okay.
So, as I said, it's a very minimal, became very, more like obsession of detailized work and do this, and more like a comfortable and detail of all of this paper. So, working with red is kind of very interesting, though. It's like energize yourself. I didn't know that. It's like, let's finish it. But you can't finish it right away. So, but at the same time, I really want to finish it as fast as possible so I don't really see it anymore. And there's 2 colors of my mother's dress.
Well, do you think the color, it's something about the saturation of the color where the material almost disappears in an interesting way?
It does.
You also feel it in the exhibition. When you come down, it takes a moment for your eyes to even understand its paper. It almost looks like bolts of fabric that's been placed on the wall. Do you feel that by saturating it in color, that ability to suspend what the material is almost elongated, this sort of suspension of people actually realizing what it is?
Yeah, material transformed by itself with, the lighting. And I didn't really know it became that way after I finished it. And I don't really think about material itself, the lighting. I don't really count all of those things after I finish. What am I going to use it for lighting? Because it doesn't really require to have special lighting for this series. So after, as I said, I learned that by previous work, that's interesting, let's work with that and give me one after idea from previous work.
Right.
So that's probably transformed into more like a fiber-ish velvet kind of
And we were talking earlier about paper and the use of paper and sort of use of commercial, mass-produced paper to create very beautiful artworks, this sort of notion of transforming something that's very, very ordinary. So, right. This is another intention thing. Okay. This idea of taking something which is almost an everyday thing and transforming it. Why specifically looking at things that are mass-produced versus these things that are very precious, like art-oriented materials?
Something not very precious things became precious thing. You know, who really cares about your receipt except when you file the taxes? That's the only time you care about this paper. And so I could use very fancy, like acidic-free paper from fancy, Europe or Netherlands, that kind of places, Germany. They have amazing paper. It's so great and expensive like hell. And every time I got that paper, it's a sketchbook. It's like, I can't even draw the line. Make me feel scared. Because, if you really screwed up, it's like how much I'm going to lose. I'm not kidding. I'm just kidding. So the material itself, for me, it has to be very comfortable, and I can abuse. I can do it over and over and over without, thinking about how precious this one is. So I shouldn't say that, but I like to abuse this material. I like to use this material the way you don't supposed to use everything. Lots of artists do that. The painting, when they paint it, you don't supposed to mix with that material, but we do. So this is the same thing. The material itself has to be totally comfortable, and I have no idea how many pieces went to dumpsters. So you can't hold on to it. Maybe I can fix it. Maybe I can recover this piece, bring it back to something better than that. No, you have to get rid of it because there's no way you can fix it the once it goes wrong way. So actually it's very critical for me. The material, I can just play with it over and over. So I'm totally addicted, and I'm totally obsessed with working with this. And my other half, he's also artist, and your work. You say you said yourself a sculptor? No, your work is 2.5 dimensional, not even not 2, not 3. Your work is between
2.5.
Exactly. 2.5. Maybe you're right. Then I'm going to show you 3-dimensional. So, I was kind of tired moving on to new projects. So I don't want to change the material. I haven't find perfect material for next project. So I had I had 300 boxes of those adding machine tapes still in the storage unit. And I got it, and, we're traveling around off-road and place like that. And the one place called Bristol Pine Cone National Forest, that's in California. And all of the trees, it's a very brutal place. It's cold and windy. And the oldest living pine tree, they are between 2,000 or 8,000 years old. They're still living trees. And most of the branches are dead, but the tree grows like twisted and lower, close to ground. It's amazing organic shape. That's amazing. So came home, and then start to work. I have no idea what I'm going to do, and all of a sudden they're stuck. It's like, oh, maybe I can twist it. Maybe I can get a concept of showing those layers and twist it and make organic shape. So after that, I got this shape for a trip of other national park in U.S.
So what year was that?
I started this project, this twisted is 2003, 4. I'm doing all same thing at the same time, but going back and forth. So
I asked because it's the first time you actually mentioned landscape in a space of inspiration. So you start working with this sort of more twisted form to create more of a 3-dimensional full roundness. But was this still on the wall first?
Those are wall.
Okay.
And can be, so it's going to sometimes single, double, triple. I just added and became single. This is same thing, same material, but I have to, this is all glue mixed with sumi ink, and then just reduced this kind of rubbery feeling. So I added more like a graphite powder. And after I learned, I can add cornstarch to reduce this shiny surface. So this is after, it's a series of what I see out there in the nature, inspiration of those living oldest tree and represented those years of time. I don't have 8,000 layers, probably I might, but, and just working with ink is so, just make me tired. So I always working with glue. So this is just Elmer's white glue, and this is wood glue.
But the surface and the light seems to have a lot more. I mean, light on the surface has always been important, but as you said, it's not your preoccupation. But in these pieces, it seems very essential to the work. Maybe?
Maybe.
Maybe.
And
because light and shadow, if you go back to the wall, I think the shadow plays a big role in, let's go back to the
I'm
the work
trying
on the
to
walls.
reduce those, the shiny surface, and I didn't know what to do with it. And that's why the car talk guy told me that on the radio.
The click and tack, click and
Use
clack tap brothers.
cornstarch
Yeah.
when you don't want to see shiny surface of your car. I was like, that's great. So this one doesn't involve that. So after that, I pretty much mix with cornstarch. This one doesn't. This one is way back. So this is inspiration of one piece sitting out there on the floor. It doesn't. That piece it doesn't involve any glue, but this one is I've put the lots of glue to hold its shape. So how this is it's just glue. It's like a book binding, but the places you don't see it. There's lots of screws and things like that involving for this shape. Just like a insulation, the bracket. Each piece has bracket, but you don't really see it. Brackets and screws. I covered it. And details.
So you had a very interesting term for this. This is not, you talk about drawing with this paper.
Yes.
And studies.
After exactly all of those leftover inks, like especially black, not this. I did make a drawings with other, rubber brush kind of thing, has a lot of teeth in it, and then that was great. That was another study. And then I got the brown craft paper roll. I unroll and re-roll very loosely and put it in the box, and to see how those line changes and spaces between those papers. And one study and became this piece. And this is just regular brown, very thin paper. This is probably 20 pounds, and the paper out there is 98 pounds. The number gets lower, gets thinner, and very thin paper, unroll and re-roll very loosely, but has to have even space. And this is probably 20 inches tall after I add it and make it big. And you don't have to do anything, just tap it left and right, and then let it go. So it just form it by itself.
So you go from doing the three-dimensional sculptures to actually starting to work into space in a very different way.
Yes.
Is this the beginning of that?
This is beginning of more floor pieces and covering the wall and more smaller. And then after that, I start to stack it on the wall to see how paper changes. Actually, this one didn't have bracket. This is my studio. So the time changes, the gravity, it's a pressing, and then the shape will change by itself. But in museum, things like that, I can't wait. We can wait 3 months to the paper changes. So we have to push it and secure the piece. And when paper gets thinner, it's a more different feeling of it, more like a silky, velvet kind of thing. So this is all studio.
And this is around 2009? This is before
No,
the Phillips
this is 2000,
collection?
way before, 2000, this is more like 2006.
So it took you a while to...
Yeah, this project was sitting in my sketchbook since 1996. So Yeah, I have books of sketchbooks of ideas. It's mostly it's not going to happen, but I still keep it. But it's going to happen. That will be great. But so this is inspiration of my artwork. What else I can think about it? This is my inspiration. So okay, back to work. So this is other installation studies in my work without brackets, and piece can collapse, and let's collapse and just let it sit and see it. So this is these are all before Philip's collection show, and this is Philip's collection, and they give me beautiful floor piece, and so I go with floor piece. I'm sorry, I didn't work with floor piece. It's a wall piece has more flexibility and more.
And is this just the gravity of the paper, or are you also fixing it onto the wall?
This one doesn't really need to be pushed that much. I just use a few screws, no brackets for this. And I still love hook size, the wave painting, so I just copied his work here. Just overhang, just like one screw. So I was like, just don't let people stand under there. So detail, and this paper, when we use a little bit of light, yellowish spotlight, and gives you like kind of gold feeling of this installation, the very second one. And
and this is the beginning of the Force of Nature
series,
which the piece out in the gallery is the third or fourth iteration of.
Yes.
It's the fourth iteration.
So this is all brown paper, and it's a site, it's an interesting site, makes interesting work. So, and we are going back to this installation.
So this was at Grounds for Sculpture in New Jersey.
And we have probably 2 tons of paper delivered. Each paper here to here is 5 inches tall right here, and 20 inches diameter. Each one has about 20 pounds, and it delivered to the Ground for Sculpture. It started to hurt my tummy, beginning of it. So I had probably 12 assistants, and they have to re-roll and unroll. This is pottery wheel, and there's other right next to it. They have just like this, and they have right here. I do make a table here, like a lazy Susan table, and automatic table turns. So we have to put all hands in it to make a paper has a space between all layers. So after they did it and tap it, it's amazing.
So how long was this process? And this is all recycled paper.
This is same paper right here. Right. Yes.
Right.
Beginning to finishing this installation at the Ground for Sculpture took 40 days with 12 people. And all of my assistants. Second week, I can't come because my shoulder hurt. Oh, it's a very hard working, doing like that. So all the paper has to be unrolled and re-rolled and put it on the floor. And this is one single, but sometimes I do double and triple. So it gets heavier and bigger, and became what you have, similar to it, like this. And this place has very much challenge though. The architect put the wall not straight, fan kind of shape. I don't know why. I told the director, can you just make it straight? And didn't happen.
It's your longing to be an architect that.
I know, but I have to work with this. And yeah. So
well, there's a wonderful time lapse of this piece too online. If you go online with Grounds of Sculpture in Jay's name. But did you come to the end of the images?
Yeah, almost finished. This is idea, and this is other idea, and this is
the landscape.
I'm living in Southern Maryland. We're out of DC, and we moved to called St. George Island. We don't have to have a boat. It has a causeway. Tip of island called Jimmy Island. And middle of installation, I went back to the studio. It was really cold. And then we never had it. Chesapeake Bay never had it like, iceberg like this. It was so cold, and the wave action going into these two jetties, the seawall, and overnight all of this ice built by its own. So it's like, oh, this is great. This is the foxes. They're just going back and forth.
And then you also talk about many trips that you and Jim take to Alaska.
The trip we go. This is not Alaska. This is. Excuse me. I don't remember exactly. It's very mineral kind of place, and they have amazing organic shape. This is all rock and mineral, something like that. And this is another, I just took it out yesterday. It's like, my work is just like that. So, yes, we do drive lots of places, back road, or the road doesn't show on the map. And we just go, it's like, put the rock and come this way, or other than you're going to fall off the cliff and that kind of thing. We have a dog, as you know, so we drive every places. So we drove here to Alaska, not here, Washington to Alaska, and go all the way up there in the Arctic and see amazing landscape. There's nothing else except tiny you and gigantic bears. So keep a distance with it. And then we drove north of Canada, Nova Scotia, Labrador, and to see icebergs. And we wasn't very lucky because that year wasn't that much iceberg showing. But this year we're going to drive up there because they have Labrador. They put new road. It's a loop, goes all the way around, and they finished it 2 years ago. So we're going to go and check it out for another road trip again.
Yeah. Well, because I mention it because of the term flow, and the fact that the inspiration is about the sort of movement, the movement of nature, and the movement of slow movement, almost imperceptible movement of.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not the activist, but through my work, I want people to see and think, how beautiful this nature is. It's so precious thing. We are just tiny grain, and and yet we can totally mess around this beautiful nature. So, for me, going out there, enjoying all of those beautiful places, every time I think about it, it's like, oh, I can't really use this plastic container. I have to recycle. So, just think about some of those beautiful nature, and we all, if we can take care of it, if we can reduce all of this global warming and that, that's just like my little bit of J-Co message here.
That's the politic I was looking for.
Oh, I'm from DC. I'm not gonna get to it. That politic concept.
Well, with that, let's open it to the audience and.